Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's episode of Trending. As always, it's brought to you by Red Life Devices, Red Light Therapy. For healing on a cellular level, head over to redlifedevices.com and use the code Ickonic for 10% off. My name is Gareth Ike. I'm joined by my colleague, Richard Willett, on the east coast of England. How are you, Richard?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to be here this morning and back on Trending.
Let's kick it off then. The CAN bill. Okay, the Climate and Nature Bill. It's a story that's kind of just starting to get out there a little bit, and that's because the second reading in Parliament, in the UK Parliament, is on the 24th of January. I know what you're thinking, ladies and gentlemen at home. I didn't even know there was a first reading. Well, that's the point. It's largely gone under the radar, and the reason it's gone under the radar is they don't want any scrutiny of it. The reason they don't want scrutiny of it is because it ain't going to be very good for us. So let's just go into it. It's the CAN bill, Climate and Nature Bill. Now, what they've basically done here is they've got UN Agenda 2030, Rich. They've just rebadged it because people obviously, you say Agenda 2030 and people's ears start to prick up. So they've rebadged it. It's largely been kept out of the news, as I said, apart from some local news outlets. Now, they're the news outlets that if you ever go to their websites, it's just pop-ups, ads, pop-ups. It's unbearable. Makes you want to strap yourself to a rocket. So no one reads those publications, and they know that. So let me just get into this very quickly, Rich. It's very much like the World Health Organization's pandemic treaty, in that the pandemic treaty gives the world, or will, once it goes through, as it almost certainly will, gives the World Health Organization, an unelected body, sweeping powers to basically take over the decision-making of sovereign countries should there be an emergency declared, a pandemic declared. And as we know with COVID, they can declare that whenever they want. And if they can't find a true pandemic, they just change the rules, as they did with that. So with the CAN bill, the Climate and Nature Bill, forced rewilding is part of it. Now, forced rewilding is a very posh way of saying we're going to steal the land. So that's the land of farmers and stuff. If they don't reach their sustainable goals, that's what it says in this document. Now, of course, Rich, you can create whatever sustainable goals you want, and if you want those sustainable goals to not be achieved, you just set ridiculous targets, and then when you don't meet it, you get to declare an emergency, steal people's land. And actually, even if you do meet those sustainable goals, you can just lie, because that's what they do. It also includes retrofitting of homes. So basically, they can force you to do things with your home, whether it be insulation, whether it be installing heat pumps or solar panels or whatever. Who's paying for it? You are, obviously, because it's an emergency, Rich. Also, they will be looking to ban fossil fuels. And of course, what that does then is that creates an absolute squeeze on the energy infrastructure, because then you're relying on solar panels in England. Good luck with the sunshine. And you're also relying on wind farms, which are absolutely useless. Lots of them basically sit, unusable. And then you can't use them when it's too windy because they break. So not ideal. So then obviously that then creates a shortage of energy, which drives the prices, makes it unaffordable for people. Travel. They'll be able to order you not to travel, not to leave certain areas, not to fly, of course, because that's part of a long-term goal. They'll be able to control food consumption, what you're allowed to. All I'm reeling off now, mate, is what we've been talking about for the last few years, isn't it? In terms of that control over what you do. What will also tie into this is what you say.
Also, it should be pointed out, Gaz, is that this will all be monetized or monitored even on your digital ID system. So all of this data will be collated on a digital ID system that you will have literally attached to your name and probably your body. So all of these points, imagine living like that. It's like living in an abusive relationship, isn't it? You would be constantly worrying about all of these data points that you're not hitting and that you're not getting. I mean, you drive yourself crazy with this stuff as well. Have I eaten too much meat this week? Have I used all my air miles this week? Have I gone out the city too much? You can't live like that. That's a gulag.
Well, the fact is, Rich, we are in an abusive relationship. We're in an abusive relationship with the state. Now, this particular story, the CAN bill, is the UK, but I can guarantee, ladies and gentlemen across the world, if you look into the small print of things that are going on within your either local government or national government, this won't be solely the UK. Obviously, this is a global agenda. So you will almost certainly find bills that will have different names, which are the same thing. So as I said at the top, the second reading in Parliament is on the 24th of January. Now, they've snuck it under the radar. People don't really know about it. Now, obviously, what that means is it means that it hasn't been scrutinized. People haven't looked at it enough. They've not read the small print. They've not gone into detail in terms of what it's going to mean for people. But what it also means is that people like us and other activists and campaigners, you don't have time to react. You don't have time to go campaigning door to door, explaining to the general public, look, this is what your local councillor, this is what your local MP is voting on in just, a few days, really. And that's intentional. Of course it is. They don't want you to scrutinise it because it's bad news. But another thing on there is energy use. So they can control how much energy you use. They can control what you eat. They can control where you travel. They can control what you have fitted or don't have fitted in your own home. And smart meters will absolutely come into this, ladies and gentlemen. And they can steal land off farmers. I mean, this is as dystopian as it gets. This is something that if we spoke about 10 years ago, you would have been laughed out of the room, told to get in a padded cell, you're a conspiracy theorist. But here it is in black and white in its second reading being backed by government. Now, this bill has got over 200 sponsors. Now, for those people, that's within Parliament. So for those people that don't know so much about how the UK political system works, a bill going through will normally have 2 or 3 sponsors. The assisted dying bill that they're pushing through now, I think that had 3 sponsors. This has got over 200. So they want this to go through. Absolutely, they want this to go through. And another thing, just finally, Rich, and I'd love your opinion on this because you look at the psychological aspect of stuff in a lot of the work you do on your Substack and on classifieds and stuff, that there's a reason why they say certain things. And there's always something in there, and people that are at home that maybe are a psychologist or have a degree in that and some knowledge of it, I'd love to have your opinion on this in the comments. The fact that it's called the Climate and Nature Bill, okay, that's fine, climate and nature. But the can bill. Now, the word can has a positive connotation to me. You can do that. Of course you can. Of course you can. It's positive. I can't. Yes, you can. I sound like Orwell. But you get my point. You can. There's a positive connotation to the word can. Now, call me a tinfoil hat wearer. I don't feel like that's an accident. I feel that there is probably a psychological aspect to that. Bearing in mind with everything these people do, we saw it through COVID massively. They use psychologists. They use the behavioural insights team. Everything they do is for a reason. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Rich, but I don't think the can bill is an accident.
It probably is an anagram of something, or not an anagram, an analogy, or some sort of like that. There's obviously some sort of esoteric version of that. I need to look into that to see what that would be. But I definitely, it is that kind of positive, isn't it? That positive, you can change, and all of this madness behind the same words. It's we can do it. We can get to net zero, which is totally ludicrous because the zero is you and I, and that's what people don't really understand. The only free energy that we ever had was us. That microphone, the cameras that we're using, it was all built by human beings. The free energy that they want to get rid of is us and replaced by these kind of hybrid artificial intelligence human 2.0. So this it could be a positive. It'd be interesting to look into that and see if there's any kind of like a Kabbalistic kind of understanding of what that word means, or Egyptian mythology, or is there a Greek god called Can or Nak or something like that? So because there's usually something behind it. I don't know right now, but I'll definitely have a look into that. But yes, so that positive reinforcement is that we can do it. Yeah, I mean, is there a reason does it say what it stands for?
It's climate and nature. It's the climate and nature. Bill, so on the face of it, it makes complete sense. And there are things in this bill, Rich, that you can get along with, like in terms of calling out fracking. Now, I know a lot of people, for some reason, in the alternative, seem to be quite big fans of fracking. Now, I'm not an anti-fossil fuel guy, far from it. But
you're not an anti-fracker, no.
But when it comes to fracking, I mean, gallons and gallons of chemicals being pumped down into the ground that basically cause mini earthquakes left, right, and center, and then put that chemical liquid into the water table that's then consumed by humans is not a good thing. So the fact that the can bill is calling out fracking is good. So you go, okay, I'm invested now. That's the sales pitch. Oh, this is a good thing. And they'll only use it in a case of an emergency. And then you go, right, okay, but they're the same people that can declare the emergency whenever they want.
Exactly. Yeah. So you are an anti-fracker, but it's one of it's one of those things, isn't it? That they give you a little bit and they pull it back as well. It's very interesting because they've started to do that quite often now. Is to give you something, but they tested this fracking thing out. Was it good 5-6 years ago? And the public kind of pushback was massive against it. So they know that that's not very popular. So it's interesting how many years in advance they try things out on the public, and then put a policy through years later when people have mostly forgot about it, and but put it through as a kind of like, yeah, we're not going to do that now. We've seen you kind of feedback on that, but in case of an emergency, we might have to. And then you've got the Boring Company by Elon Musk and all these guys as well. And what's going on in Greenland with Donald Trump wants to basically turn that place upside down. So it's very interesting. There's some big moves going on, and this Club of Rome climate change nonsense, which we discussed, I think, last week's episode, is a huge central part of it. It's a guilt trip. You are the issue that we want to get rid of, and you're a problem. And not only that, you're killing Mother Earth, and that's Gaia. They're putting all of this kind of emphasis on it. So you're a blight upon the earth. So we've seen this psychological mythology part of it as well play in. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. Most people won't have a clue that that's even going through. And I heard about that maybe about 6 weeks ago, I think. But again, it's one of these, there's so much news going on. That's the reason for doing the shows, is that you forget, because it's like a passing train. You're not going to remember the one you got on 3 days ago.
I mean, I tweeted about it in November, and that was, that wasn't me being, the fountain of knowledge. That was because I got a tip off. I was contacted by a couple of landowners that said, look, you want to have a look at this, which I did, and tried to put it out there. And actually, I found today people are quote tweeting me, like, have a look at this can bill. And it's like, mate, that was tweeted in November. The fact that obviously this second reading's coming up in January is a big thing. And what I'll do is I'll put the actual bill itself in the description for this show, so you can go and look, and all the literature is there, and you can have a look at that and make of it what you will. And contact your local councillor, your local MP, and just say, look, we don't support this. Have you actually looked into detail into what this is? Right, so we'll move on to the next story, Rich, which ties in. This is you. I will just say the fact that we managed to get Orville into a story on trending is amazing. For people around the world, Orville was a duck, a puppet that said, I can't fly. And the guy would say, yes, you can. No, I can't. There you go. Show me age.
I'm assuming it also it wore a mosh pit nappy as well, if I remember rightly.
Didn't it just?
It definitely did. Wore it well. So this one is a poke at the conspiracy theories. Now, if you wanted to create a smart city in a place where there's already people like living, there's cities there, there's shops there, there's people there, there's some famous people there as well. What do you think you would do if you thought you needed to kind of get rid of that place and get it a little bit sort of flattened?
Man, it's a tough one, Rich. I mean, just riffing, I think I'd probably burn it to the ground.
I would burn it to the ground. It's the philosophies of fire, or the philosophers of fire, which is what these lunatics think they are, which is kind of like the priest class of these lunatics, occultists. LA wildfires deliberately started to turn Los Angeles into smart city by 2028. I didn't know about this till a couple of days ago. So there is a smart LA 2028 project, has been around for a long time. As Los Angeles battles 5 wildfires, a conspiracy theory, how dare you, claims they were started for the Smart LA 2028 project. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? If you're going to flatten the place and you want to build up something new, it's constructive or destructive creativity. That's exactly what it is. And they've been using terms like that for a long time. So social media posts with links to fires and arson, with one suspect arrested in the Palisades facing life imprisonment. So they found someone, and I think I've seen that. So, don't get his word on what he said he's doing it for. He was walking along with I think he was just walking along with a flamethrower or something. The theory alleges a push to transform Los Angeles into a smart city. So this actually has some validity, whether they think it's a conspiracy or not. The 2028 smart city is already in motion, has been for a long time. What made me laugh, Gaz, is the guy that introduces the videos called Ted Ross.
I saw that. Ted Ross. Do you know what I did? I put sort of Ted Ross into Google Translate to try and see if it meant something.
Right.
And it actually, in Latin, it means tender. And I'm looking at Ted Ross of the WHO thinking nothing tender about that guy.
Definitely not, but they're putting out a tender for the land. We live in a world full of urban challenges. This is what this fella Ted Ross says. From racial injustice that impacts our minority populations to natural disasters that threaten safety and property to environmental changes that affect the very water we drink. They're putting bloody all sorts in that for years. And the air we breathe, and that as well. To address these challenges, cities seek tools that can positively transform the urban environment. The most promising of these tools is technology. Technology enables the city of Los Angeles to efficiently and ethically improve the quality of life for our residents, unless you burn it down, businesses and visitors. In other words, when done right, with fire, technology makes us smarter. This is why the city of Los Angeles strives to be a smart city. Now, people have claimed they're just talking about making the people smart. Obviously, they aren't, because he's talking about the technology there. It makes people smarter. Now, this is the whole esoteric understanding of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This is, I want to be a god. I'm going to outthink God, and therefore I'm going to create the world in anew because I'm smarter than God. This is what all this smart city is about. And obviously, what we talked about in the first story as well, in terms of your credit score, your universal basic income, your digital wallet will be attached to your smart city. You can see the place everywhere. But what's the chances of, Gaz? I know, call me a conspiracy theorist, but what are the chances they've just burnt the place to the ground and have only got 3 years to get a smart city in place for the ever esoteric and occult Olympic ceremony that'll kick off there, no doubt, have some fire, devil, demon element to that as well.
Exactly. I mean, you can apply that logic to, I think, in England, where you have listed buildings, grade 2 listed buildings that are very old. They might be maybe in a derelict state, but they're listed, which means you can't bulldoze them. But you want to build a brand new, bright glass steel thing with lots of smart stuff in it. But you can't because there's something old in the way and it's listed. Oh, no, it's burnt down. Oh, what are the chances? Oh, well, never mind. Let's build this new big shiny thing on top. That stuff goes on here all the time on a small level. I mean, I grew up on the Isle of Wight, and March was known as insurance season when these buildings were all burned down accidentally, these hotels and stuff. You know, this stuff goes on 100%. What I would say quickly, though, is yes, they've arrested someone for starting the fires. I kind of feel like maybe that's a bit of a distraction because I don't think it's a guy with a flamethrower that's starting these fires. I think there's a lot more technology involved in it, directed energy weapons. Again, call me a conspiracy theorist, but if you see some of the footage from space, which I've seen shared a bit, those 5 fires start at the same time. All 5 of them go bang. Now, either this guy's Linford Christie running from one place to the next, or there's something more at play for sure. Now,
although you would be, Gaz, you'd be like, if someone asked you to go into the woods, hang around Los Angeles with a flamethrower just for a bit, just go out and wander around with this flamethrower. You'd be asking questions going, I don't really want to, I mean, I've got other things to do today. I was washing my pants today.
Well, you say that, mate. You spend enough time in the city of Derby. People walking around with flamethrowers ain't that abnormal. Okay, true. Third story. Again, it all ties in. Now, if you go back to the first story, the can bill, what were they saying that they wanted basically to have control over should there be an emergency? They wanted to stop you traveling, particularly flying. They wanted to stop you eating meat and have some control over that. They wanted to control what energy you would use in your property, and basically could get you to do things to your house that they call it, retrofitting, but basically spend loads of money you don't have on stuff you don't want in your property. So this story is from the BBC, so it must be positive. It's a climate change story, as most of their stories are these days. If it's not racial injustice, it's climate change. 7 ways to help the planet in 2025. No meat, obviously. No flying. obviously, unless of course you're involved in the climate cult like Bill Gates and Leonardo DiCaprio and Jeff Bezos, in which case you can fly in your private jet wherever you want to go and tell people that they can't leave their telly on standby. That's fine. You've got to buy second-hand stuff. You can't buy new stuff. Okay, well, I'm sure all those climate cult Hollywood celebrities will be walking around in a pair of used Primark jeans, won't they? Cut down on single-use plastic. Again, I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense. But that's nothing to do with the climate. That's to do with environment. And that's how they link the two things together. They go, they get people on site. Well, yeah, of course it's bad that whales and dolphins are dying in the sea because they're getting smothered by plastic. So I'll support the climate change agenda. That's not changing the climate, mate. That's the environment. They've tied those things together. It's not the same thing. Yes, you shouldn't be dumping trash left, right, and center, but that doesn't mean that it's changing the weather. Defund the fossil fuel industry. Again, same as the can bill. Now, this was one that interested me. They've tried to be clever. Cut down your carbon paw print. Not footprint.
Paw print.
Paw print, mate. So
Like they see us as animals anyway, guess. That's why.
Well, they're basically, I mean, there's been a bit of a war on people having animals for a while, I think. I've seen it I think they tried to do it a little bit through the COVID era where they were saying that you could catch stuff off your pets. I know in China, people were going and killing their pets as a result of that. They seem to want to basically break that bond between man and animal. You know, a dog is a man's best friend and all that stuff. They kind of want to break that because they don't want to give us anything good. Let's have it right. They want to watch the world burn and then rule the ashes. But I found it very, very interesting because they said that a cat's life, right, is the equivalent of driving a petrol car 7,500 miles.
How do you work that out? Like,
trust me, bro. That's the science, Rich.
When you're filling up your car, does it like count down the cats along the way? So it's like I've been through. Can you put 30 cats in and a hamster this week, please? Because I've got to go all the way to John O'Groats. What is that about?
It's ridiculous. And again, people will read that and go, "Oh wow, did you know that a cat's life is worth 700?" No, I didn't know that, and neither do you, and neither do the people telling you it, because it's nonsense. Just make it up. The idea that, I don't know, Gladys in the old people's home is allowed to have her dog Rover with her, somehow changes the weather. You're having a laugh, mate. What are you on about?
It's raining outside, Rover. Your fault.
Mate. But what made me laugh about it was one of the ways that you can, basically you can keep your pet. Don't worry about it. You don't have to have don't put Rover down. It's fine. You can keep Rover, but you got to feed them bugs. So it's like, also they want the animals eating bugs now. Not just us. I bet Bill Gates ain't eating bugs. No, he's not. He's having a venison steak because that's what he had when he went to meet with the Prime Minister.
Well, there is an esoteric element of this, which people don't understand in the Kabbalistic terms, is that you are literally what you eat. So you consume the soul of the animal. So they don't want us eating meat because you're consuming the soul of the animal and like the bugs, and they have a hierarchy of this in the Kabbalah. So it's kind of weakening. I mean, it physically weakens you anyway. Obviously, that's part of it, but they put it into this kind of esoteric understanding of consuming the energy and soul of this living animal. These are, again, have a look into the Kabbalah because this is very much all intertwined in their lunacy.
Well, the bugs are not good for you. They're not good for you. And also, it actually says in this article that the reason why eating bugs is good is because obviously you don't have all the feed that you would have with cattle and whatever, because they will feed off trash. So you actually solve that problem as well. So then you go, okay, so the bug's eating trash and I'm eating the bugs. So I'm eating trash. Okay, that's going to be great.
And then if you go into the Kabbalah and you are what you eat, you are trash.
Well, they think that of us anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay, final story then. Again, this one connects. This is yours. This is the digital Big Brother wallet, Rich.
This is amazing. As if they're not rubbing it in your face. I mean, this is a new £2 coin. £2, by the way. So because it wouldn't be obviously a £1 coin, because that would be the first. So the 2 is always important when it comes to these guys. It's the replacement of. It's the new Egypt. It's the new Jerusalem. It's the Greater Israel Project, which is the King Ramses II's basically a new version of his kingdom. It's the second born is always inherits, it takes over from the firstborn. So like Cain and Abel and Jacob and Esau, it's always the second born that deserves the first portion. So there's this second thing that goes in once you start to read this. So a new £2 coin, because it has to be the second, will commemorate the life and work of writer George Orwell, which sounds nice. It will be issued by the Royal Mint to coincide with the 75th anniversary of the 1984 and Animal Farm author's death. The design of the coin is based on the theme of totalitarianism, which was central to Orwell's writing, and it will be available to buy from Wednesday. It's basically a kick literally in the eye, and it looks like something out of a 70s sci-fi film, and they're just telling you now that this is your lead into your digital currency, and they're putting it in your face. They're telling you that, here's your big brother coin.
Yeah, there's no mistake they're connecting it to Orwell at all.
No.
1984 and Orwell is interesting anyway, because, I love Scotland, right? And I love the Scottish Islands. I spent, in my previous life as a musician, I would tour them a lot. And so I would go to Jura a lot. And that's where he wrote 1984. Now, he wrote that in 1948. Now, he was dead within the year. He went to Jura because he was suffering from TB, and the air there is beautiful, and it's meant to be obviously good for your lungs and stuff like that. Now, I'm of the opinion that I think George Orwell knew he was on his way out, and I think that's why he wrote 1984. I think it was a case of, I've got this knowledge which he would have got from his protege, Aldous Huxley, who obviously wrote Brave New World. Aldous Huxley was his tutor. His college tutor, so he would have got that information from him, that knowledge, and I think he probably knew he was on his way out and went, you know what, I'm going to tell him. Now, the best way to tell people, certainly in that era, is to tell them through a novel. It's not to come out and go, oi, everyone listen, because you get shut down. So by putting it out there as a story, as fiction, putting out facts as fiction, so that, all those years later, 75 years later, me and you and others can look at it and go, hang on, this is exactly what's happening.
It's amazing to think when you look into the Huxleys and their grandfather as well. So one of the Huxleys, I think it's Thomas Huxley, was a head of a group, like a specialist group that were hidden. A bunch of like very wealthy to-do people that met before one of the Royal Institute groups. So they met before to decide the policy of the group meeting later on. And that was, I believe, Thomas Huxley, which is Aldous Huxley's, I believe, grandfather or great-grandfather. I think it's grandfather. And he was head of that group, was called the X Club. And we know that yeah, exactly. So it's the X Club, and we know that obviously they were very heavily into the eugenics, which is basically what transhumanism became, because it was Aldous Huxley's brother, Julian Huxley, who was the one given the task of rebranding eugenics, because it had a, horrible name after World War II.
A bad rap, yeah, as it should have.
Bad rap. So they renamed it transhumanism.
Which sounds all the better.
Yeah, so we can see the connections here. The X Club never went away. Obviously, the poster boy for the X Club now is where you're watching this on, and he is the poster boy for the X Club. He's just the poster boy for the X Club. He's not really involved much in the X Club, but he's selling it. He's a front man.
He plays his role as a front man.
So you can see it all connected, Gaz, and it's connected through the years. Climate change is going to connect into the smart cities, going to connect into transhumanism and human 2.0, which again is going back to that 2 that I mentioned earlier. It's the second, and this is all coming together very quickly. This is going to be a spicy year, mate.
2025, absolutely a huge year, because 2030 is the year where all this needs to be in place. It's where they want everything implemented, not being brought in, but done, signed, sealed, delivered, send the invoice off. So that 5 years is nothing to have all of this in place. So absolutely, we're going to see a lot of stuff going on this year for sure. I've enjoyed that, Rich. And actually, we've broke down 4 stories, which are basically, it just goes to show how 4 independent news stories are completely intertwined. And in fact, it's one news story, isn't it? We've chatted for half an hour about one story in 4 different guises.
Well, as your dad said, he was accused once of seeing conspiracies everywhere. And he said, I don't. I see one conspiracy with lots of different tentacles and arms. And that's exactly why this all joins together, because it is one singular conspiracy. And that's to take away your birthright and keep you where you are and keep you well below these guys that are leeching off of your creativity and your free energy.
Absolutely. Well, everything's a conspiracy theorist until it isn't it?
Yep.
Today's show, as always, is brought to you by Ape Nutrition, bringing completely organic supplements to your front door. Head to apenutrition.co.uk and use the code ICONICMedia for 10% off. Take it easy, Rich. I'll see you tomorrow, mate.
See you later. Take care, guys.